I know I am the best financial planner because I provide the best client service, period. Compared to every single advisor out there, no one could ever have better client service than me, said every financial planner ever.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Perfect RIA Podcast. I am your co-host and co-founder, Matthew Jarvis, and with me, as usual, Micah Shalansky from a van down by the river. Micah, how are you today?
That's right. Well, it's the ocean in front of me, not just the river. So, van down by the ocean. I am doing fantastic, Jarvis. Spent a lot of time with the family in the RV as usual. Even though we're building a house at this time, right? We're bouncing back and forth, trying to spend some good family time, and the RV really allows it. So, yeah, just having a fantastic time. And you made a big change recently, didn't you?
Yeah, I'm recording this from our casita at our new home in Las Vegas. So we recently moved the family down here to Las Vegas to have a home here. We'll have a home in Seattle, and so yeah, a lot of fun. It's nice to see the sunshine again.
Yeah, who knew, right? It wasn't just rain.
Yeah. Now, Micah, both of these examples, right? You recording from the RV, me recording here down in Las Vegas. It's a good opportunity. It segues nicely into our podcast, which is trying to see where your cognitive biases are, where you're anchored,
Ooh.
right? It'd be easy to be anchored and say, I can only work when I'm in the office, or I can only have a free day versus a work day. They can't blend, right? Like, Micah, you're working in this morning as we're recording this episode. The rest of the day you're spending with your family. So we get
Yep.
hung up on these cognitive anchors, these biases, and they can really skew our thinking. And what we want to look at today is, are these in fact valid anchors, or should we reset those anchors?
That's such a good thought right there on the anchor concept, right? Because a lot comes into this, and we really got to think about this. There's so many anchors that we have, conscious or subconscious. Now, also sometimes, Jarvis, I'm going to say we're going to anchor to things that also in another way aren't true. For example, it's someone that says, well, you know what, I can multitask, or I can check my email while having a conversation, and I'm not addicted to my email. I just check it 700 times a day, but really that's my productivity, right? Okay, you have an anchor in this, and that's another way of looking at it that is not a correct way. So we really got to step back and say, all right, all of these things that we're committed to mentally, how do we step back and say, is this really helping or is it hurting? Because there's nothing neutral, right? There's nothing in this camp that's neutral. It helps or it hurts, and that's it.
Yeah, Micah, that's a great point. I think other anchors that it's easy to fall into in this industry is that 1% is somehow the average or the median or the correct fee, right? So we anchor on 1%. We anchor on what's considered financial planning or not. We anchor on that needs to be a 50-page report or a one-page report. There's so many places that we get anchored, and we think, well, based on that, this seems really outside the norm. But what we want to do is reset that anchor and anchor on something that supports us, like you said, something that improves our life, not holds us back.
Yeah, absolutely, right. So let's take that 1% is so funny, right? Because people are just like, Mike, you're always trying to make people raise their fees, and it's like, nah, that's not the point of this, right? The point is
Mhm.
this isn't to get people to raise their fees, but to really ask the question, why? Why are you charging 1%? And a lot of times, there's no good answer,
Uh-huh.
right? Whatsoever. Okay, Vanguard does it for virtually for free or 30 bips, depending on how you're going to slice
Yeah.
this, right? Schwab's doing the same thing. So if you're saying it's an industry standard at 1%, okay, well, there's an argument it could be a lot less. There's also a great argument it could be a lot more, right? We've pulled a ton of ADVs we talked about in before, which are well in excess of 2% and 3%. Got 2 and 20 with hedge funds. They don't
Mhm.
appear to be going away anytime soon. So why are you fixated on this 1%? And that's kind of the essence of this podcast right here. You're anchored on that. But why? Let's step back and say, all right, is this a good business decision? Does
Mhm.
it add value to my clients? And does it add value to my family life? And if it doesn't, maybe it's the wrong answer.
Yeah. Even those groups that do it at a very low cost. Let's use a different industry. Let's look at Walmart as an example, right? Walmart's entire
Sure.
business model, Vanguard's entire business model is delivering the, I would say, the lowest amount of value for the lowest possible price. Like that's what they're solving for. And that's
Yep.
a valid business model for that group. And if that's the model you're intentionally going for, knock yourself out. I wouldn't recommend it. I don't think it's a recipe for success. I mean, it works well for Vanguard and Walmart, so maybe it is. But if you say, great, my anchor is what's the maximum value I can provide? And actually, Mike, I'm going to push back on myself on that. Not even the maximum, right? I mean, I'm not going to clients
Yeah,
and cleaning
sure.
their house, right? There's other things I could do, I suppose, to deliver value. But let's be intentional about our price value
I'm going to push
equation.
back on that one.
Yeah,
Sorry, Jarvis.
please,
I don't know
please.
if you going to client houses would deliver value. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, no, it definitely
It's
wouldn't.
clean enough. Move on.
It's moved. Yeah, yeah. We just want to look at where we're anchored. And again, everything we do with the Perfect RA is about being intentional. What lifestyle, what service model do you want to have? And then what's an appropriate fee schedule to go around that?
I love it. So again, the intentionality. I have a real good buddy, Jim, and he is also a financial advisor. We talked about it a little before, and he runs a low cost model, right? He has an a la carte service. He's very diligent in this and says, "Here's my a la carte service. I will only do this. If you do anything more, you got to do this." Now he doesn't have what I would consider our lifestyle practice, our TPR rockstar practice, from what we're solving for. But he is hyper intentional that he wants to be the low price option and allow all of these things, and that's the world that he lives in. And I applaud him from that aspect of he is being hyper intentional about these decisions. He didn't haphazardly fall into it. So whichever camp you want to do, Jarvis, to your point again, be intentional about this and then own that.
Mike, on the opposite end of that spectrum, we just aired an episode a few weeks ago with our good friend Benjamin Brandt, who will be joining us
Right.
at the XYPN conference, our panel of success on October 8th. He just did an episode with me about raising his fees, and he joked, he said, I didn't raise my fees so I could add a second floor to my yacht. Now, Ben lives in North Dakota. He does not have a yacht, but you get the idea. He said, I needed to raise my fees so that I had more capital to reinvest in my
Right.
practice so I could deliver more value. And then he outlined that out. So it's not, and we've been accused of this, Micah, it's not about, hey, how do I extort the maximum fee from
It's
clients?
so
That's not what we're
ridiculous.
solving for. We're
Hmm.
solving for what's a hyper intentional practice. Yes, it needs to be highly profitable so that there's safety margins in there. Yes, I need to be rewarded for my expertise. But again, what are we solving for here?
Jarvis, I'm going to say it's a little bit of our failure, right? We haven't probably articulated enough. What do you do when you raise the fee? Yes, you have that extra money that's coming to the bottom line, but what do you do with
Mm,
it? So let's take the Brant example here. All right, he wants to put more money, capital into his business because he has some exciting things that he wants to do. We won't spill the beans on that, but he has some cool things that he's wanting to do. Okay, great. So what are your options? I could go get a loan. Okay, that's an option.
mhm,
I could sell part of my practice to somebody else. Let's pick a dynasty or someone else that all they're going to do is buy revenue. I don't want to say they're not going
yeah.
to add any other value, right? But that's all they're going to do is really buy a
Mhm.
portion of your equity, and then that's about it. Or you could raise fees. Okay, out of those three options, which one do you really think is going to be the best business decision for you? Now, in Ben's case, as he talked about on the podcast, right? It was phenomenal. He raised his fees. His clients were happy to pay it because his clients already knew that he was delivering so much value. Now he's able to get that revenue
Mhm.
into his practice. He's able to do new things, which are going to deliver more value to clients. So again, this isn't the second floor in the yacht thing. This is how do I get this so I can
Mhm.
increase my PD budget? Guess what? When I increase my personal development or professional development budget, I become a better advisor, a better father, a better husband, and now I am more value to the people in my life. That's worth it, right? I am now providing more value for that higher fee I'm charging.
Mike, interesting that you mentioned personal development, right? We often talk to advisors who say, "Hey, I would love to join Invictus. I would love to attend this
Ooh,
conference. I would
yep,
love to join your mastermind, but the cost is prohibitive for me." And there's certainly a case for that, right? You need to manage your finances prudently. But again, if you said, "Boy, I'm going to instead offer a premium value so that it warrants a premium fee, and therefore I have capital for personal development that I otherwise couldn't afford," again, another example that this is about being intentional. Why am I doing this? Or conversely, why am I not? Again, with this fee thing, if you say I'm charging whatever you're charging, why are you charging that amount? I was recently in a debate with some advisors and they said, well, anything over 1% is excessive. Cool. So how about 1.0001? Is that still excessive? And why is 1% excessive? Why don't you charge zero point 0.9 or zero point 0.3 or 0, or Schwab will pay you to move your assets over them. So
right.
always look back at your own questions, your own beliefs, intentions. Why is it so? Is it just a cognitive bias?
Yeah, I love it. So another one that's going to be here, we kind of open the podcast off with this,
Mhm,
right? Is I deliver the best level of client service. Well, I really push back on that because one, everybody says that. Okay, great. And we all believe, I do think in our hearts that we deliver a phenomenal client service, right? That's something that we have to have integrity with. So I'm not pushing on the fact that you do,
mhm.
but what are you doing to up that game? What are you doing to increase that, right? Is that being next to your phone 24/7, 365? For me, I don't think that adds value personally. But what are you doing to continually improve that best level of client service that you want to provide? Are you just anchored in this fact that says, well, I do this so well, I don't need to improve it? Now, all of a sudden, you got a sea anchor out there, right? Which you're trying to go forward and it's yanking you backwards. You're not making the progress. How do you fix that? And we need to fix it first by identifying it, saying, what could I do better about this? What are other people doing better? And how do I improve my practice?
Boy, Mike, a couple angles to tackle. One I'm just going to take for me personally. I would say objectively, we deliver a lot of value to clients. Now, by the way, saying that you deliver value is not the same as delivering value, and no prospect cares that you say that you're a great financial advisor because no advisor is saying they're a bad one. But I would say there's probably a case to be made that you and I have high value practices, right? Just last week, I was doing a presentation with Michael Kitces on delivering massive value. There's all these things that we can sort of say, but in my heart of hearts, Mike, I think I'm just scratching the surface on value I could deliver to clients. So while I may
Totally.
humbly or not say that I'm above average in value, I think I'm only scratching the surface. I think there's an immense amount of value, and I'm constantly hungry for this. This is part of the cognitive anchoring, right? I want to anchor somewhere that's always stretching me further. There's always more value I can provide.
Jarvis, I think a lot of this is going to come into the fact that one of the things I love saying that I provide massive value, I deliver massive value to my clients, is that it always is pushing me to deliver massive value, right? I'm not going to say I provide okay value or I'm a good bargain for my price, right? Now all of a sudden I'm settling, and this is in my own head trash, so maybe it's not our listeners, but in my own head trash,
Mhm.
now I'm settling for things. But when I put it out there that I provide massive value to our clients, that we do a lot of great things, that we dramatically improve, and we're worth the fee in which we charge, now all of a sudden that motivates me, that pushes me and says, all right, now I need to up my game. How do I deliver more value? How do I push in things? And I'm not going to gauge things based on the value that I wish I would have, could have, should have provided. I'm going to gauge it
No.
based on the value in which I am providing and my pursuit of new value, right? That's my head trash for success. Because if I looked at this and said, to your point, Jarvis, man, there's so many things I could do. There's so many new value adds. We're constantly thinking about them, but we don't roll them all out to our clients. Well, I don't think sending a client a value add every 2 weeks is a salt. I don't think that actually adds
No.
value,
Uh-uh.
right? They're going to start just throwing it right in the trash. So that's not value. So I can't measure it on the volume of my value adds. I got to measure it on the impact, the consistency, and making sure my clients are moving forward. So again, what are you measuring this against to provide massive value?
Yeah. Boy, Micah, this ties into so much head trash and so much imposter syndrome. One of the reasons that we do quarterly value adds and that we recommend advisors do quarterly value adds is it creates both a forcing mechanism and something that you can lean back on when those days where you have imposter syndrome, when you have head trash, when we all have those days where we inevitably think, am I really a good advisor? Am I really doing anything for my clients? And I can look back and I can say every calendar quarter for the last 10 years we've delivered proactive value, right? And it also keeps me accountable, Micah. In the summer, when I think, you know what, I'd rather do than a value add, I'd rather go out and just enjoy my pool.
Yep.
Nope. I have a commitment to quarterly value adds. And so it creates guardrails, if you will. A little
Oh,
plug there. Keeps
I don't know about
guardrails
that.
for
I
me
thought it was
around
buckets.
delivering value. You saw that one.
That's so funny. All right. So we have these, but let's make sure we're expanding this out a little bit too and talking about our teams.
Mhm.
Where does our teams have anchors? So here's an easy one that we see with a lot of advisors and a lot of other offices is never wanting to change systems. Now, my team is the same way. I have some phenomenal operations people, and my operations people, they love consistency. That's a big, quality inside of the operations person because you want them to be very consistent in filling out paperwork, right? We want them to be diligent in these things. That also means they get kind of rooted in sometimes and they don't want to change in systems. So we are always talking about in our office, Shalansky and Associates, that hey, we're always looking for the best systems and best approach, and as long as what we're doing is the best system, we're going to keep at it. If there's a better way, we're going to look at it. I'm always planting the seed, Jarvis, with my team about changing systems,
Mhm.
because the more I talk about it, the more I can say that says, hey, as long as this is the best, now they're starting to look at it with the lens, what's the best for the client, what's the best for the office, and now they could see for the why to make the change. You and I could get excited about something, right? Maybe an advisor's listening to the podcast, they get super excited about surge meetings. They come back to their team. This is great news. We're going to do surge meetings. And the operations person is like, oh my gosh, do you have any idea how much work that is? I'm going to pull my hair out. Right. And so now all of a sudden it can be this big burden, or I'm going to do a fee increase, or I'm going to do a 1099 letter, or I'm going to do a beneficiary report, right? Any one of these scenarios. Now all of a sudden your team is just like pulling their hair. Holy crap. My advisor needs to quit going to conferences because he comes back with all this work for me. But what if you consistently planted seeds with your team that you're only going to deliver the best value to the clients and you only want to take the best approaches, etc., and you're constantly looking for them, and you encourage your team to go out and constantly look for the best approaches to do things. Now all of a sudden, what are they anchored on? Are they anchored on that way of, hey, this is the way I've always done it, therefore it's the way I'm always going to do it? Or are they constantly resetting their anchor for the best systems, the best approach, and now they're helping to pull you up? Just one way to look at it.
I love that. In that book, Never Split the Difference. Was that Bill Voss, Greg Voss?
Yeah.
Bill Voss, I think.
It
He
was
talks
Voss. Yeah, I
about
think it was Bill Voss.
yeah, Voss, a must read, by the way, a must read, a must
Absolutely.
listen to. I would recommend the audiobook because he reads it. It's a phenomenal. Um, he talks about setting the anchors. And Micah, to your point with the team, if I'm going to propose a change to my team, I was coaching an
Great
advisor and
point.
Invictus member last week on this. Let's help them set the anchor. So, Micah, you said let's set the anchor on always having the best systems. Perfect anchor. Also, want to add the anchors, and I know you do this of how could we improve the client experience? How could we make
Yes.
our lives easier? So when advisors come back from an Invictus mastermind and say, "Great news, I'm going to implement Surge," the team says, "Oh, this sounds like a nightmare." But if they lead with, "Hey, I heard about this idea for some other great advisors. It sounds like it's making their client's life better and it's making their team's life easier. I think it's something we should give a try to." Now I've set the anchors on best systems, better client experience, better team
Yes.
experience versus the anchor, Micah, that you mentioned of I have to change and it's going to be a headache.
And now it's a battle of wills, right? I want it to happen. You don't want it to happen. Now we have personality conflicts, right? Are we on the same team, etc. But if we
Mhm.
step back, and I love that approach, right? What's best for the clients? What's best for the team and the practice? Okay, perfect. Let's work towards that because those should be mutual goals. By the way, this is self identifying. If those are not mutual goals between the advisor and the team members, one of you needs to change, i.e., it's not you, right? It's the team members got to go. They got to make sure they're always wanting to deliver more value and massive value to clients. They got to make sure they're always in the interest of the practice and of the team and always pushing that forward. And if they're not a right fit.
Yeah, and Micah, and all the hundreds of advisors that you and I have worked with, I can only think of a handful of times, a small handful of times where that was the issue.
Yes.
And there was a few, and we'll talk about those another day. Most of the time, most team members are very committed to clients, almost to a personal level, and they're very committed to you and your practice because you're a small business. Like they have, it's like clients of a small business, they love that small business.
Yes.
Otherwise, they would work with XYZ firm down the road. So your clients, your team usually loves your clients and they love you on a professional level. And so helping them see that these are connected and not opposing is critical.
I love it. Now, this is also going to be really good when you plant these anchors as well, because it allows you a lot of grace when things go wrong. For example, let's say all of a sudden you got to make a BD change, or you got to make a clearing firm change, right? You got to do all of these other things that are out there because something that takes place, and now you got to make this big practice change. Well, guess what? If you've always set those anchors that I am going to be looking for the best practices, we want what's best for the clients, best for the team, etc., then that allows you to rely back on that when big things happen and saying, hey, we need to make this change because guess what? It's better for the clients and it's better for the team. And I know it's a
Mhm.
lot of work right now, but this is really the bigger system. So this gives you so much grace with your team to always be pushing that envelope.
Micah, another place I think that this applies, and we mentioned just briefly, is in surge meetings. We're obviously big advocates of surge meetings, and it's fun to hear surge meetings being talked about all
Oh,
over the
everywhere.
industry
It's
now.
so fun.
Everyone's talking about surge meetings, fall surge. We're actually now
Jarvis,
seeing conferences move around surges. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's fall surge. We
oh,
can't do
that's
conferences during this period of
amazing.
time." Yeah. Um,
I
but
can't wait
go
to
ahead,
sit
please.
down at a round table somewhere and someone start telling me about surge meetings like I've never heard it before. I think that time is coming because I can hear about it talked about, and I'm super excited about that. I think it's going to be great. That's when you know it's like total grassroots and everybody's taking it over, which is phenomenal. Because again, we're always now, are we stuck on surge meetings? No, we're stuck
No,
on delivering massive value to clients. If there's a better way to do it, outstanding. Then we're going to want to learn that and adopt that. Until then, it's surge meetings.
well, I didn't have someone preach it to me, but of course, anybody listened to last week's episode with Michael Kitsis, you heard him talking about, hey, when you're getting your value add ready for your fall surge meeting. And I don't know if I was like, I couldn't hardly focus on the podcast. I was so excited. Like, wow, Michael Kitsis is talking about value adds for fall surge. But on surge, you're already being intentional on how you're scheduling your meetings. I would hope that you're not
Yes.
taking meetings from your shower. I would hope that you're not taking them at 2 o'clock on a Sunday morning. You're already being intentional about when you meet. We're just talking about in everything we do, let's be more intentional. Let's be more intentional about
Yes.
your fee, about your value, about your surge meetings, about your team. Let's be more intentional on everything that you're doing.
That is what this is about, right? That doesn't mean you got to do 12 meetings a day. If again, we're going back to surge meetings, right? Or 2 meetings a day. This is about being intentional. Set those goals. And whenever we do these exercises with our Invictus members, especially Jarvis, and you know this in our masterminds, we go through and we set the goals first. Now, when we say we set the goals, we don't set your goals. You set your goals. We have a framework that you go through and then set your goals. And then guess what? Every decision we make is now redirected on those goals. And guess what? This is the same way, I get a little preachy here, you should be running client meetings. The first thing we do with clients is we help establish what their goals are. Then when a client comes, I had a client come to me just the other day and was like, Micah, I want to pull out $150,000 to buy a hangar because he just got into flying. Well, outstanding. You want to retire when you're 52, right? You got 5 years. This means you're going to have to work another 2 years. Your call, right? Do you want to take the money or not?
Gotcha.
I'm not making the decision whether he needs to buy the hangar or not. I'm saying your goal was to retire at 52. You got a couple years before then. This could jeopardize that. So we're always basing things back on the goals, and that's the anchor. Now, if we need to reset those goals, we reset them. So you got to do this with practice, the same way we do this with clients, the same way we need to do this with team members.
Micah, now sometimes it's hard to recognize these anchors, right? That's why they're called cognitive
Ooh,
biases, right? They're hard to
yeah.
recognize these anchors. And I think there's kind of two places to look. One is anywhere where you tell yourself it has to be this way. Anytime you say it has to be this way. Now, again, we're setting aside things that are blatantly illegal or unethical, right? That's table stakes.
Oh,
But if you're
duh.
saying,
Yeah,
hey, it
yeah.
has to be this way, that's a cognitive bias. Now, if you can say it's this way because, Micah, to your point, hey, if we find a better way, that's that. But you've got to look at anywhere I think it has to be this way. Fees have to be 1%. You have to be fee only. You have to be what. Anytime you have those and you're so passionate about them, odds are there's some kind of cognitive bias anchor there that you need to start writing out. Well, why does it need to be that way?
Jarvis, one of these times we're going to come up with a bingo game when we find these and start playing them. But one of the ones that I often hear at conferences, well, I can't do that because I'm a fiduciary. I was like, whoa, what are you talking about? You can't do surge meetings because you're a fiduciary? What does that have to do with it? Well, you can't raise your fee because you're a fiduciary? Well, what does that have to do with it? You can't not check your email but twice a day because you're a fiduciary? What does that have to do with it, right? So anytime we throw in that because, I can't do this because of X, that's an anchor, right? That's our cognitive bias coming in and saying, hey, we're shutting this down without even giving it a thought to review and think
Mhm.
about. So those are things you got to catch yourself for. And by the way, we're just as guilty. I got my own that are out there that I'm constantly
Yes.
working on. The only difference is here is I'm trying to be aware of them, that when I can see them and then have a great mastermind group, and Jarvis is really good about pushing back on me, and some other
Mhm.
solid advisors are as well, about pushing back and saying, hey, is this your bias with this, right? Why can't you do this? How do we push past those anchors?
Yeah, I think, and I'm a big fan, and Mike, I know you are as well, with our respective kids about what words do you use. So, for example, at our home, we're never allowed to say can't unless it's followed by yet. I can't do this, not
Yes.
yet, right? But same for us as adults. If you're saying the words I can't, I have to, I should, those are all
Yep.
warnings for cognitive bias. It needs to be replaced by I choose. Not I can't raise my fees. I choose not to raise my fees. I can't do surge. I choose not to do surge. So that seems that used to bother me, Mike. I used to think that was kind of a woo woo hokey pokey thing. It makes
Sure.
all the difference in the world. And I will stop advisors who say, "Well, I should do surge meetings." No, 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 no. Choose to do surge meetings or choose not to. Right? Kind of a Yoda thing. Choose or choose not to. It's not a should thing.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So this podcast is all about action items, right? So one action item, again, we have this panel of success coming up with XYPN Live. So make sure you jump in and join us. We're going to do the pre-event for it. It's going to be fan friggin' tastic. We're going to have some rock star advisors there and be able to go through this panel of success. And people, I don't think advisors, maybe I'll get a preachy in here in this service. Advisors generally don't appreciate panels of success, right? They show
Hmm.
up and they just want a presentation to them. That is not a panel of success. A panel of success is where these key advisors are going to open up their practices and you get to ask the questions. How did they do this? Where's the problem? I'm struggling with this. How did you overcome this? Right? So if you're just coming to sit down and listen, then okay, that is an option, but you may not get the most value. But if you come prepared and says, look, here's the 3 or 4 panelists, here's where each one of them is there, this is an area of my practice that I'm struggling,
Hmm.
man, you get an opportunity with some brilliant minds in the room, all of the advisors, not just the panelists, to help solve that problem. That's the power of a panel of success.
Yeah, and Michael, we've already got, as of the date that we're recording this, we've already got dozens of people signed up to attend. We will likely
Yeah.
hit our cap. We might have even hit it by the time this airs, but you can go to theperfectra.com and look for that event to sign up. You can also go to XYPN Live and look on the pre-conferences there. Micah, next action item, I would make a list of, this goes to my previous comment, of things that you feel like you have to do or things you feel like you can't do. And write out, physically write out. Don't think about it. Physically write out because it changes how your brain looks at it. Why do you have to do that, or why can't you do that? And then who says that you can't or have to? And what if you had to do it differently? So you say, well, I can't change my fees. What if you had to? Gun to your head, you have to change your fees. What would you do differently in your practice so that that new fee was still massive value?
Love it. Action item number 3, reset your anchors with your team, right? This is a great
Mhm.
thing to do. I call this planting the seed, right?
I like
I'm going to
that. Yeah.
plant this seed on things, right? We're always going to be going after massive value to clients. We're always going to be looking to improve the team and the practice, right? Is this the best thing that we could be doing? And it's just a great question to keep asking because you're constantly resetting those anchors. So that's the third action item. Reset those anchors with your team.
Looks like fourth action item. We mentioned earlier in the podcast, never split the difference. And again, it's either Bill Voss or Greg Voss. He was the FBI hostage negotiator. That
Book is great.
was probably one of the most influential books I've read in the last 10 years, Mike. It changed all of my negotiating, changed a lot of my discussions. And frankly, it just blew my mind. I love his point about, he kind of kicks off the book talking about, all right, imagine there's two hostages. We can't split the difference and say, go ahead and release one hostage and shoot the other. He said, that just wasn't an option for me. I need both the hostages back. And just right there,
Right.
Mike, my mind was blown. Like, oh, yeah, go ahead and shoot one of them. Send us the other one. We'll call it an even, a
You want
compromise.
$1,000,000, all I can do is 500,000. We'll just split the difference, right? I'll give you 500, you give me one hostage, you keep the other one, right? Yeah, yeah, not a good deal.
Great. I
Jarvis,
love it.
the
I
other thing I'm
love
going
it.
to say on this never split the difference real fast. I have not only used this with clients and chatting with them, but I've actually encouraged them to read the book and I've helped them renegotiate things going
Mm,
on in their life, right? Are they buying a piece of property? Are they buying a business? Are they renegotiating a salary, right? He talks about all of these things and I don't take credit for it. I said, hey, I got this right out of Bill Voss's book, Never Split the Difference. This is the chapter you need to go read. Go get the book. Sometimes we'll send it to them. Go read this chapter on negotiating for salaries or whatnot, and they do it. And guess what? It works. So these are great things. And talk about a value add to a client. That's a huge value add to be able to point them in this direction.
quick crazy story on this, Michael. We'll make this really fast because we're at the end. My wife Jackie loved the book as well, and I mentioned we just bought this house in Las Vegas, and the Las Vegas housing market. This was before interest rates went up. That we bought it back in like March or April. She did an under offering. She lowballed them. Right. This is where every house has 10 over the list price offers. She does an offer below list price, some really funky number, Bill Voss style. And I said, don't do that. You cannot come under list right now. You have to go way
Hmm.
over list. She says, well, this is what I'm doing. Sends us in. We had to do a little bit of back and forth. They had multiple higher priced offers and they took ours. So,
Wow.
yeah, his book works really well, even in times when it shouldn't. Michael, one last action item. I know that a lot of our advisors and listeners have given us a 5-star review on Apple, and we appreciate that. If you
Oh,
have switched podcast platforms, if you're now listening on Amazon, on Spotify, on all these different places, please go and give a 5-star rating there. So we have hundreds of 5 stars on Apple. We need to get that on Spotify and all the other places where you listen to your podcasts.
and this is the power where you can make a difference, right? You can take these action items, you can empower them, you can make a massive difference in your practice. And also by sharing this with other advisors, we have some ambitious goals. Get this message out to the advisors. We have some big goals on transforming the industry, and the only way we can do that is with your help.
Yeah.
Till next time, happy planning.
Happy planning.